Manchester United 2, Burnley 0. I'm going to say it, cruising into the quarterfinals of the Carabao Cup. I thought that was going to be a really difficult game. I could see a lot of ways where United might struggle or crumble or not just have the energy or that sort of match sharpness to win this game. Burnley have been flying, and yet somehow, United were pretty dominant. They looked by far the better team, controlled the game, controlled the chances. Just a good performance from United, that wasn't it?
It was a very, very good performance on the most part. I was surprised by Burnley. A lot was expected of them. They're flying high at the Championship, top of the Championship. They've been expansive, free-flowing. They've been scoring loads of goals. They've played 2 recent games. Everyone thought that United would be going into the game a little bit cold. But if anything, we looked like the sharper team. We looked sharp. I don't know whether there was a little bit of that United were difficult to prepare for, maybe, because Kompany's meant to be this big tactician. I don't know whether because there was so much uncertainty around whether this player would play or this player would play in terms of United and how we'd kind of approach the game in terms of personnel. Obviously, we've seen Casemiro play centre-half. Whether they just got caught cold a little bit or whether they probably came to the game smelling themselves a little bit, thinking that they'd be favourites. But I think we dictated a large majority of the game. Obviously, there was a certain period where we had 98% possession. I think we had sharp bits of play. I think we could have easily scored more goals as well. Yeah. I do feel like they had a couple opportunities throughout the game, but I think for the most part, they didn't look that threatening. And as we see it, it's a 2-goal win, clean sheet, created chances. Rashford playing well, coming off a decent World Cup when he played as well, carrying his form along. And I think there were some really good performances in there, and I don't think it needs to be overanalyzed. I think it's one of those where we played well. Hopefully, we take that into the league game, and I like the fact that we went so strong because in terms of our starting 11, because we discussed before the game the importance of United getting some sort of silverware. Yeah,
and if we look at, you talk about going so strong. If we look at the sort of the current lay of the land of the League Cup, you've got Wolves, Southampton, Newcastle, Leicester, and Charlton after they've just beat Brighton. You've also got Forest and United into the quarterfinals. No offence to any of those teams, and obviously on their day any of them could beat Man United, but all of those teams are typically, in Charlton's case, not even a Premier League team, but lower half Premier League teams. I know Newcastle are slightly different at the moment, but that is a particularly lacking Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, even teams like sort of Everton and those sorts of teams in the past that would be difficult. There's not many of them, and then you look tomorrow, it's City versus Liverpool. One of them's going out. We have to go for this, don't we? We have to keep putting out strong teams. This has to be. We haven't won a trophy in 5 years. This has to be the standard, doesn't it? Where United go out to win every single game in this competition with a full strength team. I think a trophy would be so massive for Ten Hag in his first season.
Yeah, it definitely would be, and how we see it, how you described what's left, I think United, after the draw, could be looking at being at worst second favourite.
Yeah. Well, definitely will be. That's not anything. Like, there's no possible way that after tomorrow night, United won't be second favourite. I know Newcastle are ahead of us in the league at the moment, so you could maybe make that argument. Yeah. But in terms of, Newcastle haven't won a trophy in such a long time, you would still have to put United favourites over them. And then the only other thing is City or Liverpool. And if it's Liverpool, you might even put United ahead of them on current form. So I think this is the best chance we've had to win a trophy, certainly probably since that League Cup, the Europa League in 2017.
Exactly. As I said before the game, United are in no position to be scoffing at the opportunity to win a trophy. It's quite interesting you said that the League Cup seems a lesser cup, but I don't think we can be very choosy. I'm not sure why it's seen as a lesser cup anyway. Obviously, It's got its own prizes. I don't know whether we found out legitimately whether you actually get European football from it, but I feel like the old version is cup used to. But when you're a big club like United, where you're meant to be challenging for trophies and silverware and you're on a little bit of a drought, you got to go into this. And I think Ten Hag is aware of that, because what I've generally seen from Ten Hag is he doesn't really like to weaken his squads that much anyway.
No.
In midweek, he does like to play relatively similar teams week in, week out, even with midweek games. And on the negative side, you can have those occasional games where you get caught out, can be a little bit more, players get a little bit weary, and then you have that odd game where you're a little bit off the pace. But on the flip side, you can build a little bit of momentum momentum, cohesion players that are playing a lot, getting used to playing with each other, and then you can be firing, you can get on a little bit of a run of form like you've seen from the likes of Arsenal beginning of the season, where they're pretty much playing the same starting 11 every single game. It can work out for you, and I've kind of like that, because I was kind of concerned that I was going to go into this game, be a little bit like, it's been post-World Cup, get caught a little bit slow, play a little bit of a disjointed 11, and then we get knocked out.
The thing is, though, I think it's easy to underestimate that we had none of our first choice back five playing. Like, if everyone's
and got
fit,
a clean sheet.
Exactly. If everyone's fit, none of that goalkeeper or defence starts. Obviously, Casemiro starts, but in midfield. But we made it look as though this was pretty much a full-strength team when we're missing 5 players at the back immediately, which is almost half the team. You're also then missing Casemiro from the midfield because he's now playing in defence. You're missing a fit Anthony who came on halfway through, or sort of 2/3 of the way through the game. We're missing a lot of players, and yet it didn't really feel like that. Like, I think you've got to give Ten Hag a lot of credit. Casemiro at centre-back was, I thought, excellent. He had one clanger where he gave the ball away, but some of his passing, some of his vision and his ability to read the game was just fantastic. It cut out so much before it could develop. He's just such a good player, isn't he?
He is. I think Casemiro's outstanding. Yeah. He's been up there with Martinez as probably one of our best performers this season, especially the turnaround is quite huge. I was a little bit naive initially when I saw him in the first few games, thinking that he looked well off the pace of player I expected him to be.
Yeah.
Obviously, he was probably just acclimatising probably to the league. I know it's sometimes the pace can be a little bit quicker, not necessarily better in terms of technicality to the league, definitely not. But I've actually been quite surprised with the quality I've seen from him. I think he's much better on the ball than I expected. I think he actually has a little bit about him going forward as well.
Yeah.
In terms of outside the box, his passes, his insights, his vision, the fact that he seems to be really good in the air. He can be a little bit of a threat in both boxes. So I'm not surprised that he has the ability to go centre half and play so well. I was concerned a little bit because I thought him not playing midfield would lose out on a bit of his good ball playing ability that I have seen compared to McTominay, because we've had issues with McTominay playing in that double pivot for a few seasons now, where he's never like receiving the ball to go forward. He's a little bit square all the time, and then his passes are a little bit off sometimes as well, which I think he was probably one of the players today that wasn't that great for us.
It felt quite evident that he didn't quite have the quality of the players around him, didn't it? Like when Eriksen receives the ball, when Bruno receives the ball, even Rashford isn't known for his touch necessarily, but it was just a different feeling than when McTominay receives the ball. There'd be times where there'd be players doing difficult things, so fair enough, you don't expect someone to be able to do it, but like Bruno would be receiving the ball on his chest, hitting a volley over an opposition player, Eriksen taking the ball on his knee or on his thigh or whatever, and then hitting it to McTominay, and then he's expected to do the same thing of taking it on the turn or taking it on the sprint or in a difficult part of his body, and he just can't quite do that difficult thing consistently, can he? I think he not necessarily stood out, but he was noticeable as someone that it's not gone well. It's McTominay again. Like that happened a few times.
It's because it's for a good performance all round as a team.
Yeah,
you kind of saw the massive quality difference between Casemiro playing in there and McTominay, and that bodes well for the fact that we still played well against what is meant to be a decent side. You got Casemiro to go slot back in that midfield role with Eriksen, with Bruno, and then you've got hopefully Martinez and Varane come back as well. And I think we're looking quite strong. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who's come up a lot of scrutiny, had a great assist, and I thought he played.
Brilliant assist.
I think he played decently well, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Dubravka got a clean sheet, but he was a little bit shaky on the ball for someone that's meant to have really good distribution. I think our front three was bits and parts. I think Garnacho had a bit of a difficult game. I think Rashford was really good. I thought Martial had moments. I would have liked to see him a little bit more involved though. And I think Bruno was one of the standouts as well. I think he was outstanding. Obviously, he's a little bit of edge that he plays. We've got him booked, and I think he misses the next match, which will be a little bit of a concern because it seems like Ten Hag does whatever he can not to play Donny van der Beek.
Yeah, and I thought Bruno was brilliant as well. Yeah. Like he's one of those games where I don't know if he got an assist, but obviously he didn't score. I think McTominay got the assist for the first one, and obviously Wan-Bissaka. So yeah, he didn't get an assist, but he was just fantastic. Like his passing was brilliant, his positioning defensively, put a shift in. Like if Bruno has games like that every week, I don't mind that his goals and assists aren't quite what they were in the 2020-21 season, because he's putting in top performances without having to be quite as productive. And I think he had a brilliant World Cup as well. I think it went under the radar a little bit, but if you look at, like when you watch players and like Mbappe, he scored a hat-trick in the final, so there's no question that he had an incredible game. But like statistically, he wasn't that involved for a large portion of the game. No, Mbappe. Oh. And I think sometimes Bruno can be the opposite, where
Bruno's output was good.
He's involved a lot, but he also then doesn't get the assist that are sort of he deserves from it. However, if you look at those like SofaScore, those like stats-based analysis websites and stuff, they all had Bruno in like World Cup team of the tournament.
Yeah, Bruno had a great World Cup.
Yeah, he did. But that's what I mean. I think he's carrying that on, and I think it went under the radar a little bit because he wasn't smashing in hat-tricks, and he got 2 goals, 2 assists. But I feel like he had one of the best World Cups of anyone there, and yet he didn't really get the credit he deserves, and I think he's carrying that on at the minute, is what I'm trying to say.
And I think we've seen the same from Rashford. Rashford had a good World Cup, especially when he did play.
Yeah.
And I think he's carried that on as well. We've seen the biggest thing is we saw him smiling in the warm-up. So him smiling, he looked happy, and that can be massive for a player. And I think that's why we've seen such an elevated level of performance from him. I think he's actually in a place now where he's believing in himself again. And obviously confidence at this level is huge, and you see what it means for a player in terms of performance kind of rising, and you're seeing goals and assists. Now he's already like massively outdone what he did last season in already half the season. And it bodes well for the next 6 months, because we do need Rashford playing at this level.
And just on that goal, phenomenal goal. I mean, they dropped off him a little bit, but going past players on the edge of the box,
still got
getting in the space, the finish across the goalkeeper, fantastic. Any goal where you start 45 yards out from your own goal and finish putting the ball in the opposition net, it's going to be a pretty good goal, isn't it? It was just like proper vintage Marcus Rashford, which is mad to say because he's only 25, but you know what I mean? Just like that is what he's so good at when he gets the chance to do it.
Yeah, there's normally when we've seen him dribbling like that, we've seen him over the past couple of years dribbling head down, ends up giving the ball away or runs into the player, but he's different now. He's got his head up. He's a little bit more decisive.
It's nice, isn't it? Isn't it nice to see him?
He's doing. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. Honestly, of all the players playing well, he's one of the most exciting to watch. Because I know that it's a bit kind of route one.
So the nutmeg as well.
But like,
the nutmeg,
just driving at people, sprinting and smacking the ball. There's nothing more exciting than that. Before we go, if you haven't checked it out already, we will be in Dublin on the 30th of December, between Christmas and New Year. Me, Stephen Howson, Adam McCullough, Jay Motti and Brian McClare will all be there as well. There are still some tickets available, so click the link in the description or the link in the comments to buy tickets for the live show. It's our first ever live show. Come down, come chat with us, come hear what Brian McClare's got to say about Fergie, about Man United, about everything. Make sure you come and check it out. Like I said, link to the tickets is in the description, so make sure you check that out. Ronaldo Brown, thank you for joining me on the watch along. Where can people find you?
Ronaldo Brown _98 on Twitter.
Or in some business class flight to some high-end sporting event, no doubt, after the World Cup escapades. It's good to have you back.
No idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, sure. Qatar, all expenses paid, you know what happened. But make sure you check him out on Twitter. Thank you very much for joining us. Hit subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see you in a bit.